Kearns. I'm a 30-year resident of Brevard County. I want to thank concerned citizens, the Macedonia Baptist Church, and NAACP for inviting me. I've been living here for 30 years. I've raised 3 children in Brevard County. They all went through schools. They went through Riviera Elementary School, Stone Middle School, and Palm Bay High School. My one daughter went to the Melbourne High. So we're all local here. We've been here for 30 years. I've got a degree in oceanography from Florida Tech. I spent 2 years in the United States Peace Corps, Honduras, Central America. When I came back, I began writing for newspapers. I wrote for Florida Today for a time. I wrote for the Sebastian Sun. I wrote for Edinburgh Press Journal. All in this area. I covered county commission meetings. I covered city council meetings from as far as from Vero Beach all the way up to Titusville. I know local government. After that, I worked briefly for an independent web company, and then I came back to news for a little while. Worked in Melbourne, worked in the city of Melbourne as a reporter. I worked as a teacher, Florida Air Academy, as my science background. I taught oceanography there. I love this community. I just adore this community, and I'm running because I started to see some things happening at the state level, particularly with regard to education. That was what the slap in the face that woke me up was, is when 25% of the millage rate was cut from the allowable budget for millage for schools. At the same time, our property values were falling off a cliff. It seemed a deliberate effort to attack public schools, and ever since then, the administration in Tallahassee hasn't done anything to indicate that they weren't on a warpath towards public education. We just heard the school's candidates talk about the classroom sizes, the diminishing opportunities for children, the constant budget cuts. That's what got me into this race initially. But all 3 of my kids went entirely through the school system. If there was a problem, we were there. But right now I'm looking at alternative energy as a fix for the economic problems of the areas. Roads are big for me. And I think there's areas that we can achieve what we want out of Brevard County if we just reach out and grab the opportunity. Thank you.
How y'all doing today? Thanks for having me. My name's Randy Fine. I'm a 3rd generation Floridian. In fact, my grandfather moved to Florida not long after he got off the boat from Eastern Europe. And I've actually lived in my home here in southern Brevard for the last 10 years. I have 2 little boys. They're 8 and 4. Both were born at Holmes Regional Medical Center. I'm not a professional politician. I'm not someone who's been sort of agitating in local issues for a long time. I spent my career as a businessman. I started 3 companies over 22 years, and I created hundreds of jobs. And if you told me 2 years ago that I'd be running for dog catcher, I would have told you that you were out of your mind. My decision to run was literally a spur-of-the-moment decision because I got angry about what my son was learning in public school. He came home last January with a piece of paper that said that 9 plus 6 didn't equal 15. He was asked that question, what does 9 plus 6 equal? He wrote 15 on the piece of paper, and it was marked wrong. It turns out in the state of Florida, 9 plus 6 doesn't equal 15. It equals 4 minutes of gibberish. People talk about Common Core. This is what they're talking about. We don't teach math anymore to help people learn how it is that they can be successful in the world. So when I went and talked to the principal of his school and said, why are you marking this wrong? He told me that if my son wanted to be successful in public school, he needed to learn that 9 plus 6 didn't equal 15. But 2 hours later, I was a candidate to run for the state legislature. So that's why I'm doing it, because I believe that if our children aren't given the skills that they need to be successful, then we're doomed. Who's going to take care of us when we get older? There's nothing more important than making sure we set up the next generation to be successful. That's not all I want to work on. I want to work on that. I want to work on economic development. As someone who knows how hard it is to build a company, I like to make sure that companies want to start, build, and grow here in southern Brevard County. I'm also very focused on the Indian River Lagoon. My family of passionate fishermen, boaters, and those kinds of things, and it's not in good shape. And so I want to make sure that we do what is necessary to fix it. And then lastly, I want to make sure government is set up to take care of those who need it. Thank you.
Any rebuttal to that?
Initial question, what are your views on restoring rights to prisoners upon completion of their sentence? Second part, are you in favor of bringing a reentry program to Brevard?
Me first? Look, I I think it's a difficult question. I think it depends, frankly, on the crime for which people are committed, are convicted, as whether their rights are restored. So I can't give you a blanket answer on that. You know, someone who's been convicted of murder and things like that, I don't have an issue with them having lost their right to vote. But someone who's been convicted of something that's much more trivial, I think it's something that we can certainly take a look at. As it relates to a reentry program, I think what we need to be doing is we need to set up so that when folks do make bad decisions or whatever happens to them that they end up in those places, that we try when they're there, forget reentry, when they're there, we try to give them the skills so that when they get out, they can actually get a good job. I mean, a lot of people make these decisions because they don't feel like they have other alternatives. Part of what I'm angry about as it relates to education is the issue, and this was talked about a little bit in the last debate, that we spend so much effort on college preparedness that we don't realize that not everyone should go to college. Most people shouldn't go to college. We've created this system that says if you don't go to college, you're a loser. That's what the left has taught in order to create big university factories to hire lots of leftists. What we need to do is help people get jobs that actually exist. And so whether it's people who are in prison who need to get skills for when they get out, or trying to help stop it before they ever get there, I think a huge part of our education system needs to be re-engineered to say what are the skills that we need when people go through that education system. If we need lots of philosophers that go to college, then great, let's have them. But we need lots of plumbers, and we need lots of electricians, and we need lots of people who can work in factories. And so I'm committed to make sure that we spend the resources to make that happen.
We are only one of 3 states that keeps felons from having their full rights restored when they have completely paid their debt to society, and we need to stop that. Violence, certainly for violent crimes, yeah, I see that. But if you're a felon who's, credit card fraud or whatever, and you pay your debt to society, you were desperate, you did a thing, you need to be able to fully fledged get yourself back into the system. And the punitive kind of march towards let's keep a person down, even though they pay their debt to society, is kind of what we're seeing here. I find it interesting, philosophers, that, one of the great despots in the universe, Pol Pot, the first thing he did is went after the philosophers. This is the second time I've heard Mr. Fine talk about going after philosophers or French literature. It's amazing the spin on the right, which is completely, let's go after the people, the eggheads first. I don't know anyone in this room who's telling their kid to get a degree in philosophy. Last time I had a debate and he was here, he was with us, it was talking about French literature or feminine literature, so we need, but I always think of the nurse who's got the STEM background who also knows humanities and is able to reach across and relate to that dying person because they've gotten a bit of poetry or they've gotten a bit of philosophy. And I think right now the right's effort is to absolutely shut down thinking in the United States of America. And I don't believe in it at all. And I think yes, there should be VOTEC programs. And we need, there are 380,000 jobs. We can have an alternative energy right now in wind turbine generation. The right won't look at it. The Republican Party won't even consider it. And that's a 2-year program, less than 2-year program. These are jobs at $56,000 a year. And the right won't even touch it. And why? Maybe they haven't had enough philosophy. So that's my view on the subject. But absolutely, we're one of 3 states that continues to do this and keep people down. And I think it's time to stop.
Mr. Kearns, what do you think is your greatest strength for this position?
My love for Harnett County and my love for the state of Florida. I've been coming here to the state of Florida since I was a child. My dad moved down, they divorced, my dad moved down to Miami. And my dad took me down to a camp in the Keys, Big Pine Key, and I scuba dove down there the first time I was 14 years old. I was in love with Florida from that moment on. And I think that's my greatest strength, is that I see what's going on right now in Tallahassee, and I want to change that. I'm seeing this hatred towards our environment, towards our water, towards our very people. The right wing that is in control of the state of Florida is poisoning our water. They have enabled the industry to increase the amount of benzene allowable in surface waters in the state of Florida. And it's disgusting. The lack of care for the very ground beneath our feet rings through the Republican Party in the state of Florida. It's a great indictment to people who would otherwise be thinking right, but they're listening to the wrong drummer. And I think I can go up there and I can be that drummer for the correct side, for the people of the state of Florida.
Okay, the flip side of that question, what is your greatest weakness?
Probably passion, you know. Activism is something that he's sort of taking a shot at here. Okay, you know, I haven't been an activist. Well, you know what? I have been an activist because I see people getting pushed around. So I guess perhaps my biggest weakness is the fact that I do get active, and I fight back.
Mr. Fine, same question. What do you see as your greatest strength to be the representative of the state?
Sure. So it's a good question, and I had the advantage of having some time to think about it. So Mr. Kearns did not. He got put on the spot. I had to think about it. So keep that in mind when you judge my answer. I think my greatest strength is that I don't need to do this. For me personally, this is a great sacrifice to my family. I have 2 little boys. They're 8 and 4, who I will be away from for 15 to 20 weeks a year when I go to Tallahassee for a job that doesn't pay very much, and it's frankly not why I'm doing it. So I think that when you don't need to do something, it gives you the flexibility. And frankly, losing would be a great financial decision for me. And so I can go and I can do what I think is right, and I don't have to worry about special interests. I don't have to worry about pandering. I don't have to worry about, well, what if I make somebody mad and I lose this job? The biggest problem we have in politics today, frankly, is careerism. It's actually not a liberal or a conservative or a Republican or a Democrat problem. It's that people look at this as a job. So I'm very involved in scouting, and when I look at scouting, I don't think of what my scouting career is going to be like. The problem is people look at politics as a political career. You're supposed to do this because you want to serve others, not because you want to serve yourself. And I will get nothing out of this process. And so I think that gives me an independence and a freedom that I think will allow me to do a good job for the people that I'm going to work for.
Okay, and so the flip side.
Sure.
What is your greatest weakness?
So I thought about this. I don't want to do the humble brag. You know, well, I'm so smart that puts me at a big disadvantage. I actually want to say something that's truly negative. I think for me, the thing that would be negative is because I didn't spend my life focused on community activism, there are many issues I still have a lot to learn about. There are certain things I know a lot about. I know a lot about starting and building businesses. But there are many issues that I still have a lot to learn about. And the good news is I will have that opportunity when I get to Tallahassee to learn those things, not only from experts, but from the people that I'll be going to represent. So I have a lot to learn. I don't think I have all the answers, and I would think that's my biggest weakness.
This question is for both of you. It's from the audience. With the current conditions facing our communities, with the shooting and killing of our young black men, what will you do to improve relations between law enforcement and citizens in the way of law enforcement training, transparency, and independent investigations when law enforcement is involved in beatings and killings? And Mr. Kearns.
Under President Clinton, there used to be a program called community enforcement, community police enforcement. I don't know where that stands right now. That's something I want to look into. It used to be you were a police officer, you lived in the community that you were a police officer. On Sebastian, they had community enforcement. That seemed to work pretty good. And when my kids were going to Stone Middle School, there was an officer, Officer Rapole was here. She was awesome. And then budget cuts happened, and then we moved the budget cuts forced the patrol officer out of the school. I think having a friendly face, and certainly with respect to the community, somebody that community can identify with. In Cocoa High, when I taught there briefly, there was a community officer who was awesome. She resembled the community. We need people who are culturally sensitive to the community in which they serve, so that people see that officer in a friendly role first and foremost. That's got to happen. We used to have citizen oversight boards in the various towns and cities. To be honest with you, I don't know if we even still do that. We need more of that. I think we need to look system-wide at the possibility that we have some unwanted elements that are entering into our law enforcement agencies. This is no disrespect to the fine officers that risk their lives every single day. These people risk their lives every time they pull somebody over. But nationwide, I'm talking, there's something very strange going on with some of these shootings. And I've spoken to other candidates in other races, and they're in agreement. There is something very strange. And that in itself could be a national security issue. We need to look into that. Another thing is, we need better programs for students in schools. One of the ideas that I had was kids should have a program in how to adult, and I don't know how long this will last, whether it's a semester or whether it's a year. And these programs would teach kids, these are the things, finance and so forth for your home, these are the things that you need. This is getting a license, we don't do that anymore. But also, this is law enforcement, and these are the things that happen to you if you fall afoul of that. And this is the legal system. This is probation, this is what that means, this is community control, that's what that means. So that kids have a real understanding of not only the court system, what judges are faced with, what advocates are faced with in the school, but also what police officers are faced with on a daily basis. Statistics would also help that.
Same question.
Can you repeat it? It's been so long, I actually don't remember the question.
With the current conditions facing our communities with the shooting and killing of young black men, what will you do to improve relations between law enforcement and citizens in the way of law enforcement training, transparency, and independent investigations when law enforcement is involved in beatings and killings?
So I try to write those things down. 3 things are interesting: training, transparency, and independence. Well, first I want to present a cautionary tale. I will be one of 120 people in the State House in Tallahassee. So I don't want to imply that what will I do? I'll do my best. But one person in that legislature isn't necessarily going to be able to solve the issue. I think we're blessed, frankly, here locally. I don't think we're having a lot of those problems that we see around the rest of the country. We've got a great sheriff, Wayne Ivey, who's endorsed me, and I think that he's done a good job, at least in the unincorporated part of the county, of fostering those relationships. Look, I think the 3 things you spoke about, you can't do too much of. Training is always good, and we need to make sure that our officers have all the training they need to deal with any kind of situation. But I think training both ways. I had a police officer come to my Cub Scout pack that I'm the Cub Master of, actually to one of our den meetings, and we talked about what to do. If you ever have an interaction with a police officer and how to handle it, and I think we need to sort of train everyone to be more respectful to each other. I think transparency, look, there's a movement to have body cameras. I think it's something we need to look at. It is one thing that when people make statements about what happened, it's another thing when we can actually see what actually happened, and so we can hold people accountable, because people do make mistakes. And then I think a lot of this relates to people spending time together. I mean, if you look at people as people and you don't look at them as something to be afraid of or some sort of challenge, if people spend time together, if they work together in their community, I think that we can knock down some of these barriers that people have. I am glad that I live in Brevard County, though, and I'll do what I can to make sure that we don't have the kinds of issues that we're seeing in some of these other communities around the country.
Your closing statements, please. We'll begin with you, Mr.
Well, thank you again for having us. It's always it's a pleasure to be here. And what I can say to you is, once I get elected, my door will always be open. I plan actually to have my office not too far from here, and I intend to have a 100% meeting policy, which means folks who are my constituents will always be able to get in and see me about any of these issues. I have a lot to learn, and I have a lot to learn from you. Ironically, the philosopher comment, the college I went to, I was the closest thing to getting a philosophy degree, and so I understand how ill-prepared it made me for the career that I chose, and so that's why I talk about it. But look, there are 4 things we need to do as a community if we want this community to be successful. We need to make sure we educate our kids. We need to make sure people can get good jobs. We need to make sure we have a clean environment, aka the Indian River Lagoon. And we need to make sure that we have the resources to take care of those people who need it, like wounded veterans, like special needs kids, and abused women and families. Those are the things I intend to go to Tallahassee to do, and with your support, I hope that over the next 2, 4, 6, and 8 years, we'll be able to get a lot of that done. So thanks for having me today.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me. There's one thing that struck me, Mr. Vine said, and I want to reiterate. I don't need to be here. That was a comment that was his predecessor's comment, or my predecessor's comment, whoever wins. Mr. Tobias said this at a county commission, or not county commission, a Barefoot Bay Recreation District meeting, when he was getting too much hassle. And I want you to bury that in your mind. I don't need to be here. Well, I think I do need to be here. I absolutely do need to be here because somebody who cares needs to be here. Somebody who cares about people needs to be in this office. You know, like I said, I raised all 3 of my kids here. They all went through public schools here. I got a degree here in Florida Tech. I got a degree in oceanography. I've actually worked in that river for years, you know, either as a scientist at Florida Tech or just as a recreational fisherman. And I spent a year on a clam farm there. I love that river. I love this environment. We have to bring the new revolution in alternative energy. That's going to bring 300,000 jobs here in the next 15 years if we just reach out for it. Thanks so much for having me. Appreciate it.